Unreal Engine is ruining video games. Let's check it out.
Unreal Engine 5.
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 Unreal Engine is ruining video games. Unreal Engine has made real-time, near photorealistic graphics readily available for whoever wants to take their time to learn their stupidly overcomplicated program. And with the gift of bringing the power of in-house engines to the public, in return we've gotten an oversaturated market of absolute blah. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Unreal.
You know I like Unreal Engine as well. I just don't like poor uses of it, and I feel like unfortunately a lot of studios put a lot of poor use behind it. So does anybody know like how they have those similar models or similar looking things? Everything feels shiny, right? It's like it feels like everything got plastic surgery in Unreal Engine. And I don't think that's the engine's fault, but rather a symptom of people not fully understanding how to use it. It's like they took the sharpness tool of a picture editor and went completely out of control with it. And that's what I really don't like about Unreal Engine, about how these it creates these clone games, these copy games, lookalikes, and that's really the big thing. But I think that's more like a poor use of the engine rather than the engine's fault itself.
Unreal Engine. For God's sake, I hope I do. It single-handedly pays my bills. But that doesn't mean I don't have many problems with the engine. With the release of Unreal Engine 5, you all have probably seen tens of different games coming out in the next year or two made in Unreal Engine. And maybe it's just me, but I've been quite disappointed when watching these trailers. It's just this repetitive, bland look that me and my coworker have been calling the Unreal Engine look.
Okay.
It's this indescribable feeling of sameness that has plagued the visual style of all these games.
Yeah.
It's something about the depth of focus.
Everything that comes out of Unreal Engine, or at least the majority of it, has a formulaic look to it. Like, do you see how shiny she is? There's 100 different other female models that look similar or just like this that come out of Unreal Engine in different games. You know, maybe the lip lines are a little bit different, but that same shiny, like, I just got Botox all over my body look is always there. It's kind of weird.
Focus and the hair and the foliage and the particle systems. Oh God, don't get me started on the particle systems. Maybe this is just a thing that I care about, and honestly, maybe it's just because I work in Unreal Engine for 10 hours every day, so I'm so used to seeing all the weird uniquities and imperfections that the engine brings to these renders, but so many games these days feel like personality-less asset flips. This is not to say that Unreal is purely to blame. Unreal is a tool that many studios use to help them create hyper-stylized masterpieces. Things that step out of this uncanny valley of Unreal Engine and into the feeling of any other AAA game. Maybe it's that damn Square Enix budget that gave Final Fantasy VII and Octopath the ability to make these wonderful demonstrations of what the engine could produce.
Yeah.
And maybe
That's what I mean, right? It's a symptom of people not understanding the engine versus the engine itself, because this is not same. Like, Octopath was a great game, and it couldn't be further from having that shiny look.
That's what the real problem is. Games are able to be made by smaller and smaller studios these days, and thus they rely more and more on the tools like Unreal Engine to make their art. Some indie studios can absolutely use this in amazing ways. Take Stray, for example, a game that is completely stylized and beautiful, but most studios rely so heavily on what Unreal Engine can do that they all become this unstylized, semi-realistic blob. Unreal Engine itself is an amazing tool that can help us create stunning games, but it's a double-edged sword because it has that trap of the unrealiness of it, which
I think what they do is there are so many features in Unreal Engine that you can basically, apply to the game that it becomes like a less is more type thing, where you start using every single tool and every single dial inside there to amp up the graphics and bring it to the next level, and then you end up with this very familiar look across all your games because you're trying to do the most, right? You want to it's like almost taking all that effort and like applying it in the wrong places, when they could just like tone down the graphics and like make it a more stylized look, make it their own versus something that's similar.
which is honestly hard to escape, especially if you're indie. Unreal Engine isn't really built for indie teams. It makes the promise of easy photorealism to whoever wants it, but the price is one of the only things that can make an indie team stand out in such a competitive industry. Their style. Even games that try to make their own style to fit into the awkward shaped puzzle piece that is Unreal still fall into this uncanny generic valley. That is the trap of Unreal, an empty promise that you can make whatever you want, but whatever you make will always be generic.
I mean, like, let's think about this, right? People play Minecraft because it's completely unique. Yes, there's a lot of Minecraft clones, but people go to Minecraft for its unique, stylized look. The graphics, unshaded, okay, I don't want people going, but what about the shaders? With just the base graphics, it's a completely unique, stylized look, which is not particularly photorealistic, obviously. It's cartoonish, it's even beyond that. It's like a sketch almost that you look at on Minecraft, but it's familiar because they built the brand around that look. It's stylized to the company, and it adds to the gameplay because it's not the same. It's a new experience each time and each place you go when you play that game, because you haven't seen these types of objects, you haven't seen these models before. And when you go into, X Unreal game to X Unreal game, it's the same thing. I mean, it's like the combat might be a little bit different. There's probably new abilities, but it's like the same type of look and feel for every single thing, and that can be damaging because it creates like a lot of copies of the same thing.
And like that character that pushes it to be the masterpiece that you want it to be. Unless you have millions of dollars of budget, and then you might make something that looks unique. I hate that I'm saying this, but my nemesis, Unity, doesn't have this problem. It's more open-ended visually. It lacks the guardrails that Unreal places on.
That aged like milk, didn't it? Holy shit, that did age like milk.
on you that are so hard to escape. Unity 2 can become samey, but it's samey in the way that people make their games generic and they look generic, and not in the way that the engine forces you to make it look the same. And yeah, there are always pros and cons to using either software, but in my opinion, as an indie designer that uses Unreal Engine every single day, Unreal Engine with each update is becoming less and less a tool for the solo developer and more becoming an overcomplicated mess that might become best used by large studios, lest the market might become so oversaturated with Unreal Engine 5 games that soon people might gawk at the sight of...
And I don't think it's bad that they add all those tools, right? I don't think it's bad that they make it overly complicated. Bad that they make it overly complicated in the sense that they add so many options that there's so many different possibilities, right? Unreal Engine is like the path of exile of gaming engines, or is trying to become that. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. If they have some kind of like learning course, for smaller indie devs, that's, even better. Because adding those options just adds more possibilities for like a skilled craftsman, right? A artist is only as good as his tools, kind of thing. And if he has, Da Vinci level tools over here, he's going to make Da Vinci level games, assuming, we don't get the greedy AAA force the game out kind of practices. But look at games like Baldur's Gate. Now, it didn't use Unreal Engine, but these are the types of things possible if people put the effort in. And Unreal Engine is just basically building the tools to give you the capability to do stuff like that. It just adds more possibilities. So that's why I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that they make it complex or add complex features to it.
Something made in Unreal. There might be such a plethora of generosity that might make people sick of seeing these games, and thus made in Unreal might soon be something that turns many people off from games made in it. But in all honesty, that's just a thought, and this whole video is completely opinionated. It's just what I think as a game designer. And if you agree or disagree, I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. I love Unreal Engine from the bottom of my heart. I've been using it for 7 years now, and it's made me the designer that I am today. But it clearly has some flaws that I hope don't send it down the path of dead engines of the past.
Yeah, so as a game player, I'm not a designer by any means, but I knew what he's talking about, the sameness, right? It's so similar when you go from one Unreal Engine game to the next that you almost feel like you're playing the same game sometimes. I mean, Unreal Engine is doing a lot of great things, and I think they should continue down the path, like I said, to make their tool set as good as possible, because that's only opening things up for the possibility of making better artists. Will there always be lazy people? Absolutely. But I don't think that should stop Unreal Engine from looking to perfect and add more features and things that give the tools to the artist to make a better product.